Growing concerns have continued to trail Nigeria's inflation rate in the month of July 2022, which rose to a 17-year high of 19.64% in comparison to 18.6% recorded in the previous month of June 2022. The last time Nigeria's inflation was above 19.64% was in September 2005, when it rose to 24.32%. The latest inflation data is according to the recently released Consumer Price Index (CPI) report for the month of July 2022 by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS).
The report added that food inflation rose to 22.02% in July, an uptick compared to 20.60% in June. This rise in the food index was caused by increase in prices of bread and cereals, food products, potatoes, yam, and other tubers, meat, fish, oil, and fat. The Russia-Ukraine crisis continues to equally have overwhelming effects on the global economy, resulting in the rise in energy and food costs. To expound more on how this inflation rate will affect you and your business, we have Chief Economist, CEO Streetnomics Limited, Gospel Obele. Good morning, Gospel, and thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me again.
Gospel, it's been 17 years since Nigeria last witnessed an inflation rate this high. What do Nigerians need to know about this current situation?
Well, thank you very much for the question. First off is the fact that it's a global conversation, and it's deepening because of many other activities happening globally as well. But then again, for countries at the lower rung of the developmental ladder, there are possible cases that it's going to hit differently. And it's going to hit differently because there are much more vulnerabilities within. And also, you also have the convention of imported inflation and how all of these things may affect and impact on consumer spending. So it's going to be tough going forward.
Okay, and can you also share, how much of the economy will be disrupted by this inflation rate? Looking at, of course, the constant change in employment and the cost of doing business since the pandemic, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of stability. How much more will be affected?
Yes, a whole lot to be affected. I mean, first off is the fact that prices of goods and services would increase, which is the first level of impact. The second level of impact is that consumer spending choices would be limited as time goes on. Disposable incomes will shrink because you now have fewer monies, available for products and services. So the consumer has to pick, which will also impact on manufacturers. Or industries and FMCGs and all the likes in terms of profit margins and all that. But the flip side of it is that a lot of FMCGs and a lot of institutions may likely further increase prices for fear of what the impact of inflation may do or what impact of inflation has done to their own global supply chain, or as the case may be. There's also a conversion of what we call value chain transfer cost. Because you have the inflation narrative, it means cost of mobility, cost of transportation would hike. And once that happens, the price of an item in terms of moving across the value chain from the producer to the retailer and all the likes would also increase along those points. Another worsening conversation and worrying conversation for Nigeria is that when you now have a worsening inflation reality, mixed with growing FX problems, mixed with pre-election uncertainties, and mixed with the fact that they've been recent fuel scarcity and all the likes, then that's going to be like a poverty trap, destination in itself, meaning that inflation would worsen and hit the average Nigerian to a point where they may not be able to freely aspire to live up their daily, dreams and things they really want to do in the sense. And on the flip side, it means that basic necessities may be hijacked in the research. So food, clothing, and shelter would be hijacked at the base level. And the average consumer, the average Nigerian will be trapped just trying to live by the basics than even seeking to aspire to do more with life.
I mean, Gospel, you've mentioned a lot of things that we are facing, and in addition to that, we might be witnessing low purchasing power, mass retrenchment, weak savings. I mean, there are lots of people it's someone that's eating that will talk about saving, and an increase in the number of the poor. Now, the question is, what is the way forward for this? What are the possible solutions, and how can the common man, the average man, better prepare themselves for the potential outcome?
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We need to understand that inflation for Nigeria is a mix of many variables on the table. There's a global shock of things, in terms of how commodity prices are worsening globally due to the Russian-Ukraine war, newer levels of lockdown in China, the climate change and all that. You have those global impact on global inflation, So the first level of things is to, go back internally and begin to look at what can we do to reduce the impact of these global effects on the Nigerian economy. Until all of these structural questions are being asked and dealt with, we will keep repeating these cycles back and forth again. Then internally, there is need to power up your economy in such a way that you can grow towards effectiveness. What are the pressure points for inflation in Nigeria? First of all, you want to think of power, right? If you solve power to about 50 or 70%, the average Nigerian will need not to depend on a PMS or any of sorts, and these things are very critical because that's where the bulk of the pressure is, operations, running a household and all of that. Secondly, you want to fix your value chain internally to ensure that we're moving towards more of the processed side than the core production side, and once you can tilt that correctly, you now begin to look towards access to market, meaning how do you sell most of your products and services for exports? How do you position them for exports? How do you power economic agents like entrepreneurs who can literally do more for your economy? That way your exchange rate or your currency begins to have much more value in the marketplace. So we need to begin to work our structural dynamics, and until our structural issues are fixed, we may not be in a position to absorb or take or control the pace of global shocks on the average Nigerian. One of the reasons why the pace of global shocks hits heavily and really fast on the average Nigerian is because we have so many permitting points, so many penetration points, so many leakages as well, and the economy is vulnerable to many things happening globally. And also to state that, gone are the days where you use monetary instruments, to solve inflation may be an economic variable, but the dynamics of this inflation is different. You have geopolitics, you have global health, you have climate change, reinforming structural challenges, reinforming the construct of this inflation. So trying to use interest rates as a singular instrument to solve inflation would only worsen the problem. So stakeholders need to think of a multidisciplinary approach or, a multi-stakeholder-led approach in quotes in terms of instruments to solve the inflation problem on ground. Trying to raise interest rates to further worsen the state of inflation, as it were, globally and even furthermore in Nigeria.
All right. Very interesting, and we hope, of course, that we would somehow get out of, this situation as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Gospel Obele, for your time and for speaking with us. We would, of course, bring you in again pretty soon. Meanwhile, worried by the economic woes in the country, the 36 governors will on Wednesday, the 17th of August 2022, meet at the banquet hall of the presidential villa in Abuja to discuss the way forward.
Abdulrazak Bello Barkindo, the Director, Media and Public Affairs of Nigeria Governors Forum Secretariat, in a statement declared that the state of the nation's economy will dominate conversations during the meeting. According to the statement, several governors reasoned that it is high time to tell each other the bare truth by confronting each other on the situation and brainstorming on it. We hope that it's not just by having these meetings, that the meetings will actually yield an outcome, because we know how meetings have been here. There are meetings all the time, but we're not seeing any implementation of what is being, said in the meeting. Very important.
Totally agree, and that's with the economy, with security, with numerous other issues that the country has faced. There's been meetings, there's been orders by the president. There's been, economic
Deadlines
committees, set up.
Exactly.
There've been so much, and it's either, they're not discussing the right things, or they're just not implementing the outcomes of these meetings, or they're documenting
it and not implementing it.
Exactly.
We certainly hope for the best.
Right.